Okay, good afternoon, everybody. We are live here at the DictionBuddy one-on-one series, and we're extremely lucky and proud to have Dr. Everett McCorvey with us as our special guest today. So thank you and welcome, Dr. McCorvey.
Well, thank you very much. I'm delighted to be here. It's an honor to be on the program.
Awesome. Well, it's a privilege to have you join us, especially this special month. But any time of the year would be a gift to have you here with us. So thank you everyone for joining us. I'm going to give it a few minutes for people to trickle in because I know that people get the notifications at different times, and also there's people on different platforms. So we'll give it a minute. But
Yeah.
this is a beautiful Sunday here in New York. It's quite sunny actually, and kind of warm. How are things
Well,
down there where you are?
yeah, we've been in the frozen tundra, and so it's been very, very cold. And so
Uh huh.
I'm very happy that I just took a nice walk, and it was actually really wonderful to be out and not so cold outside. So I'm now
Got it.
just waiting so that we can all be back together, all get vaccinated, and
Mm-hmm.
so that we can join together again in performances and in
Yeah.
concert halls. And I really miss that. And I think
Yeah.
that
Me too.
so many people have figured out how to uh, create
Mm-hmm.
even though we're in this predicament. And
Mm-hmm.
so I'm looking forward to the time that we can be together, and
Yeah.
and I hope that's very soon.
I certainly hope so too. I mean, so many of our colleagues and people we love have been affected by this, and it
Well,
is also encouraging to see so many
yeah.
people being creative and innovative during this period.
Well, I think the arts have been especially hit hard, and of course, choruses not being able to be together and trying to
Mm-hmm.
find ways to be together, and instrumentalists, and I mean, people are making it work, and they're finding creative ways to do it. But
Mm-hmm.
our industry certainly has been hit probably harder than other industries,
Agreed.
as you know. And so I'm hoping that everybody will get vaccinated. I'm hoping people will wear their masks, and
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
so that I think when we can do these two things, then
Mm-hmm.
that's we'll be able to get back together quickly.
Yeah. Yeah. That's the hope, right? Everyone just works together and is cooperative in this new era. Basically, I mean,
Yes,
things have
yes,
changed significantly, and who
yes,
knows whether we'll ever go back to a normal time. But
yeah.
to make the first step, it certainly takes all of us making efforts to address it.
Well, I think of even what you're doing with Diction Buddy
Hmm.
and with your own platforms and your radio shows and your
Hmm.
team that you all have assembled to create Diction Buddy, which is really quite wonderful. I'm very happy to say that my university, the University of Kentucky, has we have a subscription, and our students have
Yeah.
subscriptions, and they are able to use Diction Buddy, and it's been a really wonderful tool for our students to have, and
Hmm.
even in this COVID
Yeah.
time, it's been especially wonderful because
Yeah. Yeah.
students are not able to get coachings like they normally are because it's
Hmm.
difficult for them to be together.
Yeah.
So I really feel like you and your team have, you all have offered a wonderful tool for
Hmm.
us in the industry to use. So thank you. And I
Of
know that
course.
you
Yeah.
were
It's a pleasure.
planning this even before COVID happened,
Absolutely. Yeah.
but for it to all come, come to fruition, and all
Hmm.
during COVID has just been wonderful. So we thank you and your team for doing that.
It's a pleasure. I mean, we have a great team. Vita and Emma, and all the various talent that we've brought into the team to help build this solution out. And the thought behind all of it was just trying to use the digital revolution
Hmm.
to serve the opera community and classical music in general.
Hmm.
And I've always felt that the classical music world has sort of lagged behind
Hmm.
in the adoption of digital technology for the benefit of the
Hmm.
entire industry.
Yeah.
So we thought it was a great opportunity to serve our colleagues and do something new and innovative. And I'm sure there's more to come from others that are going to contribute in their own ways. And a couple of friends of mine have built things like I have a friend who built App Accompanist,
Mm-hmm.
and a friend who's also built Resonance, who's
Mm-hmm.
a new app, which is a platform for getting hired as a singer or as
Yes.
an artistic professional. So there's a lot more to come, and I'm definitely excited to see what the future holds.
Well, we need people like you who can, think out of the box a little bit and, think about all of the possibilities. And I think you're right. I
Hmm.
think our art form has lagged a little
Hmm.
behind, and it's an old art form. And
Very much.
so
Yeah.
it's not surprising that
Yeah.
because it's an old art form that it may take a little while for the rest of the industry to catch up in terms of technology. But
Hmm.
I think again, COVID has been a wonderful way. Well, wonderful. That's not the right word. It's been a
But I know
way
what you mean, though.
of advancing technology because we've
Hmm.
all had to turn on a dime in order to
Absolutely.
make it happen. I mean, there was no, no preparation. I cannot tell
Trial
you
by
how many
fire.
meetings I've been in where they say, "Yeah,
Hmm.
we talked about this, but we
Hmm.
never got around to it
Yeah.
until now." And then
Hmm.
all of a sudden, now we're having to do it all the time. So,
Yeah.
so
Yeah.
I'm very excited about that. So, thank you very much for doing that.
Of course, it's a pleasure. It's a pleasure. So we have a few more people, I think, now in the stream. More will trickle in over time, but I think we can get started. And I'd like to begin by asking you to walk us through the beginnings of your career as a singer, as a tenor,
Hmm.
and how that's all transitioned, because it's very interesting. I'd love to get some background on that.
Well, thank you. I grew up in Montgomery, Alabama, during the civil rights movement, and
Hmm.
that was in the late '50s and early '60s. And
Hmm.
my parents were involved in the civil rights movement.
Hmm.
My
Oh,
father was a deacon at the church where the Reverend Ralph David Abernathy was the minister at First
okay.
Baptist, and that was the Reverend
Hmm.
Abernathy was the assistant to Martin Luther King.
Amazing.
And
Oh,
any of those iconic pictures that you see, Reverend Abernathy is right by Dr. King's side,
mm,
and also Dr. King lived about 2 blocks from our house when he was preaching in Montgomery, Alabama, at Dexter Avenue Baptist Church. And so
wow.
my father was involved because he was a deacon at First Baptist, and my mom was
Hmm.
Methodist, so she went to the
Okay.
church first
Interesting.
St. John AME up the street. So,
Hmm.
when I would go to church on Sunday morning, it was a full day of church. I'd start off at St. John in the Methodist tradition for Sunday school and church, and then
Hmm.
after church, go down the
To
street
the
to First
Baptist.
Baptist to the Baptist and spend the rest of the afternoon. So I was
Nice. You got
there
a
for.
thorough religious education.
That's right. That's right. And but I sang in the choir
Hmm.
at St. John, and sang in the Sunbeam Choir as a kid,
Okay.
and enjoyed music and all. But it was not until I was in the third grade, and
Hmm.
we housed young men who went to school at the local college. It was at the time it was called Alabama State Teachers College, and now it's called
Hmm.
Alabama State University.
Okay.
But we went to my dad wanted to help the university because the university did not have enough dormitory space. So they sent out
Okay.
notices to people all in the community saying, if you have a room that you can house a student,
Hmm.
please help the university by doing so. And so
Mm.
Alabama State was one of the colleges where if you wanted to be a teacher and you were black, that was one of the
Hmm.
places that you were able to go.
Wow.
Uh,
Okay.
and so my dad we had some rooms in the back of our house, and he fixed it up so that we could house young men. So we actually housed 6 young men who went to college at Alabama
Wow.
State, and one of them played the trumpet.
Mm.
And one summer, I heard him practicing the trumpet in his room. He was in the band at Alabama State, and I'm telling you, I think it was the sweetest music I'd ever heard in my life. And
It's awesome.
so after I heard that, I talked to my dad. I said, Dad, I'd love to learn how to play the trumpet. And
Okay.
so he took me
Hmm.
downtown to Arts Music Shop in Montgomery, which is still downtown, and I met someone there,
Hmm.
and we rented a trumpet because I think my dad didn't think I was going to
Follow.
stay
Stay with
stay with
it.
it. So we
Okay.
rented a trumpet, and I came home and played around with it a little bit. Then my dad said, "Well,
Hmm.
son, do you want to take lessons?" And I said,
Hmm.
"Sure, I'd love to take lessons." So he went up to the local high school, which was a block up the street. Growing up before desegregation, the
Hmm.
communities had everything. You had your
Yeah.
local funeral home, you had your local
Mm.
schools, you
Hmm.
had your local delicatessens, all in the black community because,
Right.
especially in
We're
Montgomery,
segregated.
it was
Yeah.
segregated. So you couldn't go
Hmm.
to the other side of town.
Yeah. It's so crazy that
Yeah.
it was like that.
And
Yeah.
and so the local black high school was right up the street from my
Hmm.
house, and the
Hmm.
band director was named Mr. Ellis, and so we went up there. He talked to Mr. Ellis and arranged for me to have a trumpet lesson, and
Hmm.
I call it a life-changing experience for both of us because that day after I had my trumpet lesson, I knew that being in music was what I wanted to do for the rest of my life.
Hmm.
And
Hmm.
for Mr. Ellis, that night he had a heart attack and died. So
What?
it was terrible.
Wow. Oh my goodness.
And
Wow.
so I was stunned and
Devastated, I'm sure. Yeah. Young man.
devastated.
Yeah.
And because,
Yeah.
I was young, I was in the third grade. So, in
Hmm.
my world, I thought, well, maybe I killed him with my playing. I mean, you
Surely
know,
not.
yeah. But my dad took me through the whole experience, took me through the funeral and, and all like that. And then afterwards, he
Hmm.
said, well, son, would you like to have another trumpet lesson? Like for me to find
Hmm.
somebody else? And I was like,
Hmm.
no, Dad, I don't want to kill somebody else. So I'll just teach myself how to play. And so I taught myself how to play the trumpet and
Really?
became
Wow.
quite
Okay.
proficient
Hmm.
at it. And
Hmm.
marched in the high school band,
Hmm.
even though I was only in the third grade, and did
Wow. So
that
you're
through.
very advanced.
Yeah, I was very
Hmm.
excited about that, and of
Hmm.
course, back during that time, the university was not. Alabama State was still, struggling for money, so they had one set of band costumes. So the
Hmm.
high
Hmm.
school band would use the costumes on Friday, and then
Hmm.
we'd have to take them off, give them to the college, because the college would wear them on Saturday,
Oh
and
wow. You had to share because
we had to
resources
share.
were scarce. Yeah.
Yeah,
Mm.
and but I tell you, the band uniform sat on the back of my door in my room,
Hmm.
was hung on the back of the door, and I'm
Hmm.
telling you, it was the thing that got me up every day to go to
Mm.
school
Right.
because I
Mm.
wanted to be in the band, and I
Hmm.
knew that in order to be in the band, I
Hmm.
had to do well in school, in my classes.
Uh-huh. Okay.
And so it was a real encourager to do well because my folks would say, if I brought a bad grade home, I couldn't be in the
Hmm. In
band.
the band. Oh.
And so that really kept things
Cool.
going. And
Hmm.
I think about that now because one of the things we're trying to do is take so much out of the schools and just
Hmm.
replace it
Yeah.
with just the STEM programs. And I'm thinking
Exactly.
about all of those people who are involved in the arts, like myself when I
Hmm.
was young, and how the arts can also bring people to school. And the
Yeah.
arts can also encourage
Hmm.
people to do well
Yeah.
in school so that they continue to
Hmm.
participate in the arts. And so,
Yeah.
I always, instead of talking about STEM, I talk about STEAM and adding
Yeah.
the A in there for the arts
Absolutely.
because
Yeah.
uh,
Hmm.
all of the brains work differently. And so
Absolutely. Hmm.
let's use all of those skills to be able
Hmm.
to move our society forward. And so
Absolutely.
certainly
Yeah.
it was
It's
music for
audio,
me.
visual, kinesthetic learners, people, right
Absolutely.
brain, left brain. There's a lot to consider, right, when you're
Absolutely.
putting education together. Yeah.
Yeah, and so that was important to me, and
Hmm.
so I participated in the arts throughout my entire elementary, middle school, and high school, and then went to
Hmm.
college thinking I was going to be a band director because of my
Hmm.
experience,
Okay.
and but I had been singing along the way, and
Huh.
the teacher who heard me in my scholarship audition for
Hmm.
college was a man who was the voice teacher for
Hmm.
Jim Neighbors. Now, you may not remember Jim
Hmm.
Neighbors,
Okay.
but I bet some of the radio audience remembers,
Okay.
and
Okay.
Facebook audience knows Jim
Hmm.
Neighbors. He was
Okay.
Gomer Pyle was his name, and he
Uh-huh.
played this on a television show. He played this goofy Marine soldier, but in
Hmm.
actuality, he was a fantastic singer. And so,
Huh.
and every time he'd open his mouth to sing, it was just so opposite of the character that he was playing. And
Interesting. How so?
it was a gorgeous voice, gorgeous
Uh,
baritone voice. So if
okay.
you ever have a chance, look up Jim Neighbors,
I'm going
and
to.
so. But he went to the University of Alabama, which is where I went
Hmm.
to college, and so this
Uh-huh.
voice teacher was the teacher for Jim Neighbors, and
Hmm.
so he discovered Jim Neighbors' voice, and so he convinced me to go into singing
Mm.
instead of playing my instrument. By then, I had changed
Mm. Mm.
to a
Okay.
baritone horn
Hmm.
and was doing that. But
Hmm.
even in junior high school, I loved conducting. And
Ah,
in the junior high school choir
interesting.
band director, I was in the
Hmm.
band in junior high school and in the band and the choir in high school.
Hmm.
But the junior high school band director also was a band director at another school. And so once a
Hmm.
year, when the two schools played each other, they had to have a
Hmm.
competition to see who was going to conduct the band.
Oh,
And
okay.
I never won, but I always competed. And
Okay, nice.
but it sort of it awakened my interest in conducting. So when I went to college,
Mm.
in addition to voice, I mean, I took a lot of conducting courses and
Hmm.
had a wonderful conducting teacher there,
Hmm.
and so I knew at some point my life was going to also
Move in that
move
direction.
towards conducting, and so sure enough,
Hmm.
I went to New York and freelanced as a performing artist, and then came
Hmm.
back and got my doctorate and at the University of Alabama, mainly
Hmm.
because my voice teacher was there,
Ah, okay.
and
Okay, great.
and so he worked well with my voice, and had
Hmm.
a fantastic college experience. So
Hmm.
after my doctorate, I started teaching. I taught at Knoxville College in Knoxville, Tennessee, for a couple of years, and
Hmm.
followed in the footsteps of
Nice.
Nathan Carter, who left Knoxville College to go up
Hmm.
to Morgan State
Uh-huh.
and
Okay.
have a
Okay.
huge success at Morgan.
Great.
And
Great.
then after,
Is Nathan Carter still there?
no, he's passed on.
He passed away? Okay.
Yeah,
Okay.
and but he built an amazing tradition there,
Yeah.
and
Morgan State is very well known for that.
absolutely, and
Yeah.
it was really Nathan that who got that started, and
Mm. Great.
so after Knoxville College, I was invited to take a voice position at the University of Kentucky in Lexington, Kentucky,
Hmm.
and
Great.
that was 29 years ago. So I'm celebrating my
Wow.
29th year here,
Amazing.
and it's been great. I'm a
Hmm.
professor of voice, and in addition to teaching voice, I'm also the director of the opera program.
Hmm.
And
Excellent.
of course, I have the great fortune of being able to continue my professional work in the field as a
Hmm.
conductor, both as founding director of the American Spiritual Ensemble and the artistic director of the National Chorale in New York. So it's a really full
Yeah.
life, and
That's
it's one
sounds like
that
a very busy schedule.
yeah, that I love very much, and I feel like the university has been so supportive of me, pursuing all of these interests. And of course, in what I do in exchange is, I'm able to recruit students from all over the world who come to the
Yeah.
University of Kentucky to work on degrees in voice and or other degrees. And we've been very successful in putting singers out into the business
Great.
as
That's
opera
important.
singers, and we've had Metropolitan Opera winners, and we have students in many of the young artist programs around the country, and students singing in Europe, and so
Nice.
I'm very proud of the work that we've been able to do.
What do you think you do differently that's created that consistency in results and that success for your students? Is it
I
in the
think the
selection
thing
process? You're picking the right talent and
I
nurturing, or
well,
what do you
I
think?
think one of the things that I do just on my own is I strive for excellence. I mean,
Hmm.
excellence has
Yeah.
to be at the top of everything that you do.
Hmm.
And,
Yeah.
and no one knows how long it takes to achieve excellence. It
That's
doesn't
true.
matter the project you're doing. I tell my
Hmm.
students all the time, nobody is going to ask you how many hours were you in the practice room today. I mean,
It's true.
we'll know how many hours you were in the
Yes.
practice room
Based on
by
the
how
result,
you're.
right?
That's exactly right.
Yeah.
And the
Yeah.
reality is,
Hmm.
it's nobody's business.
Yeah.
The
Good point.
goal
Hmm.
is that when you present yourself in
Hmm.
whatever you're presenting yourself, you have to present excellence. And
Hmm.
so, how
Hmm.
long it took you to
Hmm.
get to that point, it's nobody's
Yeah.
business. And
True.
so, the
It is a
thing that I've
commitment you
tried
make
to
to
do.
yourself, right?
Absolutely. And
Hmm.
so that's what I've tried to do in all of my work, is to make sure that whatever I'm doing, it is at
Hmm.
the highest level of my capabilities, so
Hmm.
that
Hmm.
that sort of excellence will be reflected
Hmm. And the
in my
product you put out.
performance in the product.
Hmm.
And so
Hmm.
I think that students have latched on to that. They've seen the quality of the
Hmm.
work that we put out, both in the opera program, certainly in the American Spiritual Ensemble, and my work
Hmm.
at National Chorale. And so I think and so what I look for in a singer, if I'm looking for a student for my university, I'm looking for someone who has a commitment to excellence, a commitment to working, a
Hmm.
commitment to being the best that they can be.
Hmm.
And I work very hard to try to find that out in a very short period of time. But
Hmm.
I try to recruit at that level, so that we are always looking for the top students.
Yeah.
And I'm not afraid to compete with any university in the country for
A
the top
little
students.
healthy competition. It makes a huge difference. That's great. I mean, I think philosophically we're very much, in agreement that it does take a commitment to excellence, and when you find individuals that are chasing excellence,
Yeah.
you're sort of kindred spirits, and
Yes,
that's going to produce the right sort of result.
that's right.
And it is a combination of talent, but talent is often overrated. It's not just about talent; it's
Oh,
about hard work,
yeah.
and
My
that's
wife.
something I've come to accept.
That is so true. My wife has a little magnet on the board that
Hmm.
says something like, uh, "Work trumps talent when
Hmm.
talent doesn't work
Work
hard."
hard. There you go. I love that. It sounds like something my dad would say, and
Yeah.
I think it's interesting. And I mean, I feel like the generations, as generations have passed, I'm talking like I'm an old man, but as generations have passed, I think that old age wisdom has sort of been forgotten in a way, or has become less uh, accepted as sort of the reality of the world. That
Hmm.
you can have as much talent as you want, but Michael Jordan, one of the things that really set him apart was he worked harder than
He
everybody
worked
else.
hard. That's exactly right.
Same with Tiger Woods. He
That's
started at
exactly
3 years
right.
old, and just
Yes.
he's failed more times than most people have ever tried.
Yes.
And
Yes.
and I think that's a huge testament to what it takes to be great.
Yes. Well, I have a friend here. He's passed on now, but he was one of the owners of the franchise Long John Silver's, and
Hmm.
it's
Okay.
it's a fish
Mm.
franchise.
Yeah.
And I remember talking to him one time, and he was telling me about his I was talking about his restaurant and how successful it was, and so his friend said, "Well, uh, Everett needs to see the book of failures." And
Yeah.
he had several successful restaurants around the
Hmm.
country, and
Yeah.
then he pulled out this big book
Hmm.
of failures, all the
Hmm.
restaurants that failed. And
The
he
things
said,
he tried
"Oh,
before, right?
yeah." He said, "Oh, this was a great one in Chicago, and this was one in New
Yeah.
York, and oh, I love this one in California." And
Yeah.
but it
Yeah.
just goes to say that we have to fail. That's okay to
Hmm.
fail in
Yeah.
order to then be successful. And what I
Hmm.
try to create at the University of Kentucky is an environment where students are able to fail in a
Hmm.
supportive environment, because then that's
Yes.
how they're
Yes.
going
Yes.
to
Yes.
learn, and that's how they're going to
Oh, that's fantastic.
move forward.
Hmm.
And so I think that's
Yeah.
part of our success here.
Yeah, I think in the age of, technology as well, failing publicly is such a scary proposition, right?
Yes,
Because
yes,
the internet is forever and it's totally unforgiving because, as
yes,
they say, the internet is undefeated. So
yes.
the type of things that go out, on social media, I mean, it keeps me up at night. It's like, oh
Yeah.
man, hope that rehearsal doesn't make it out, in public or something.
Yeah, yeah.
So it does kind of create this environment where there's so much fear of
Mm-hmm,
failure and of
mm-hmm.
making mistakes and just being a
Yes,
human being,
yes,
and the
yes,
social climate also is just very, very tense. Things
yes.
have certainly improved in the past few months, but I think, it's an interesting um, sort of fact of life now. And it's great that you're countering that by creating a safe space where students can experiment.
Mm-hmm,
I
mm-hmm.
think I watch a lot of comedy, and
Mm-hmm.
even comedians, are having a tough time finding a place where they can go and
Yes,
try out jokes before they
yes,
put it out, because
yes,
sometimes it's not
yeah,
ready, and if there's no place to try
yes.
it,
That's
and everyone's
right.
filming on their cell phones, every 2 seconds. It's hard to have that creative freedom
Well, look at
to
all the
do what
Broadway
makes it
shows that start out of town,
right.
because they have to go through a series of evenings and figuring out what works and what doesn't work before it actually gets to Broadway. So by the
Yeah.
time it's gotten to Broadway, it's
Hmm.
been in workshop, probably
Absolutely.
several years, working to get there. And so we
Exactly.
all need those platforms
Hmm.
where we can try out our gifts and fail a few times. And
Yeah.
so that part's been very exciting. So it's been great to be able to work with the next generation of
Hmm.
professional artists
Hmm.
and help to train the next generation of professional artists,
Hmm.
and to be advisor for so many. And
Hmm.
because of my work with the American Spiritual Ensemble,
Hmm.
I've been able to work with performers of
Hmm.
color, and
Hmm.
although the American Spiritual Ensemble is diverse,
Hmm.
it's not just
Yeah.
an ensemble of people of color,
Hmm.
but it has allowed me the opportunity to audition and hear a lot of singers from around the country,
Hmm.
and really in many places around the world,
That's
and
great.
then try to put on another hat. I call
Hmm.
that hat my impresario hat,
Hmm.
and help them to reach their goals and their dreams
Hmm.
as
In their
professional
careers.
artists.
Mm.
And so I take that part of it very seriously, because when I was growing up, there were only a few people out there who, the classical music world was just beginning to open up, but barely. And
Hmm.
so,
Yeah, I can only imagine.
and so I was influenced by the tenor George Shirley,
Oh
who,
yes, yes.
you know, I was just a college kid
Hmm.
actually working on my doctorate, and I reached out to him to talk about my research project for my doctorate was the art
Hmm.
songs of African American composers. And
Oh
I had
great.
seen somewhere, well, he had done a workshop at Rust College, and so I sent him a letter to ask about recital music,
Hmm.
and I'm telling you, you would have thought that I was his long lost son, because
The
all of
warmth
a
of it.
sudden he just sent me letters and
Yeah.
copies
Wow.
of programs. And I mean, it was
Great.
amazing to
Hmm.
me that this man who only knew me from a letter that I wrote to him just sort
Yeah.
of opened up and just took me under his wings and
Hmm.
helped me to understand the music of my culture
Hmm.
and introduced me to classical singers of color. And
Hmm.
it was
Hmm.
just an amazing experience. And
Yeah.
so
Of course.
I thank George Shirley for doing that for me. And it's one of the reasons that I try to do that for other performers because it was so meaningful to me. So
Yeah.
as
That's
part
awesome.
of my giving back, I want to make sure that I offer opportunities to other singers.
That's fantastic. Thank you for that story. It really is about paying it forward and paying it back,
Absolutely,
and
it
you're
is.
making that a priority.
That's right.
What advice would you give singers today? I mean, it sounds like you found your mentor. So, one question from one of the audience members is, a lot of things have changed, obviously, in the business, and not just because of COVID, but even pre-COVID. So, what are some thoughts about advice you would give to singers today?
Well, I tell singers all the time that they are the CEO of their vocal corporation. So
I love that.
you are
Yeah,
because who's going out on stage to perform? You are.
you are. Yeah.
And so, but every singer needs a group of advisors. And
Hmm.
so, one of the things that I would advise singers to do is have a very small group of advisors that they can
Hmm.
trust, and that will tell them the truth. So,
Hmm.
who is that group? It would probably be your voice teacher,
Hmm.
your coach.
Hmm.
It may be your choir director. It may be your Aunt Mary who always tells you the truth about your voice. It may be a music teacher in town, but
Hmm. Hmm.
you are the
Yeah,
CEO of that corporation.
yeah.
So
You're the decision
you're
maker.
that's right. And you have this board that's
Yeah.
around you, these 4, 5, or 6 people
Hmm.
whom you trust. And
Yeah.
then as you are told things, because every singer who performs is, if you have 100 different auditions or you're involved in 100 different master classes, you're
Hmm.
going to get 100 different uh,
Opinions.
opinions about how you should do something.
Yeah,
And
absolutely.
so I tell singers after they have a master class, they need to
Hmm.
take that information back to
Hmm.
their teacher or
Yes.
back to their coach and
Hmm.
say, hey, so and so said this to me in a master class. What do
Hmm.
you think?
Yeah,
Now, if you do 5 master classes and you hear the same thing 5 times, then maybe you might
that's
want to
an indicator.
regard that may be an indicator.
Yes, yes,
indicator.
yes.
But sometimes you get these famous
Hmm.
singers giving master classes, and
Hmm.
they will give advice to somebody,
Hmm.
and it's just like totally opposite of anything they've ever heard.
They've-
And then these
Yeah,
singers are
yeah.
so desperate to
Hmm.
try to make an impression and try to do the right
Hmm.
thing that
Yes.
they throw out all of their years of
Of
work
training, yeah,
of training
and
and
development.
try something just because this one
Mm,
person
yes,
said it.
exactly.
And
Celebrity A says this, so
yes,
yeah.
and so what happens is they are just then in a tailspin.
Hmm.
And so
Exactly.
what I tell singers when I meet with them, I say, I'm going to make some suggestions to you. I
Hmm.
want you to give it the old college try. I want you to try it.
Hmm.
If it works for you, keep it. If
Hmm.
it does not work for you, throw it, ball it up
Hmm.
and throw it into the trash can.
Yes, yes,
Because
yes. Okay.
if you have 10 different master classes
Hmm.
and you get 10 different instructions and you're trying to do 10 different things, your head is
Hmm.
going to become so
Yeah,
cloudy
you
that you
you
won't
can never be
no,
effective. I mean,
you won't be
you're
effective.
dispersed and confused, and I commend you because it takes a lot of humility to actually even acknowledge that it might not be useful. Because I think often what happens in our industry is, they kind of there's this effect of this cult-like following under
Mhm.
voice teachers and
Mhm.
coaches and celebrities, right? So
Yeah. Yeah.
everything they say is sort of seen through the lens of this like halo effect bias, right? That we have
Yes.
because oh,
Yes.
they've been successful, they've had a great career, so they must know what they're talking about. But that might be true, might be, but
But it might
that's an
not be true.
exactly, it's incomplete picture based on a very little exposure to you as a singer. And how are you feeling that day? How would you rate yourself and what you did that day,
That's
right?
right.
All those have to be considered because they may not be getting the right picture,
That's
right?
exactly
And that's
right.
why it's important to have people around you that you trust, that you can rely on, that
Yes.
know your habits. It's like, yeah, you do tend to do that. So you see what I've been telling you for the past 3 years.
Yes.
Everyone else is
Yes.
hearing it too, so maybe you should take a listen.
That's right. That's right. And then if somebody is talking to you and telling you something and it works for you, that's
Yes,
fantastic.
exactly.
Absolutely. Take that and run with it. But take it back to your teacher, take it
Hmm.
back to your coach
Yeah.
and discuss it so that then you all can figure out as a team if
Hmm.
that's the
Hmm.
best approach for you.
Yeah,
And you
I
can't
like it.
have too many on your board of directors. You
Yeah,
got to
too many
have,
chefs in the kitchen, so to
yeah,
speak.
you got to have a few people that you trust that you listen to, and then proceed that way. But the reality
Hmm.
is, we are, as the board of directors,
Hmm.
only your advisors.
Yeah.
You are the CEO.
Yeah,
And so
exactly. The king has
you
his
are the
advisors,
one.
but the king is king.
That's right. That's
So you
right.
are the queen, right?
I'm reading Barack Obama's latest book, and
Oh, I see.
he was talking in the book about the fact that he in his first administration gathering the people around him. He just read The Team of Rivals about Abraham Lincoln's team that he put
Mm,
together, and how you were putting together people who had opinions different from yours.
yes.
And
Yeah.
you have to have a team
Mm,
that you believe in, that you
hmm.
trust,
Yeah.
and that when they tell you something that's different
Hmm.
from what you really want to hear,
Hmm.
you have the space to be able to consider it. And
Exactly. Yeah. It's
but the
wisdom.
reality is, the person walking out on stage is you. And
Hmm.
so you have to be able to have a technique, an
Hmm.
approach to singing,
Hmm.
approach to performing, an approach to this art form that
Hmm.
works the best for you. And
Exactly.
that's the only way you're going to find peace and solace in this business, because the business is crazy. And so,
So I've
and
heard. Sounds
yeah,
vaguely familiar.
and what I think is going to happen is that there's not going to be a slow ramp up to getting back in after COVID. I think the
Hmm.
business
It's
is
gonna be
just going
like
to
that, huh?
boom, and it's going to hit.
Hmm.
And so the other thing that I've been suggesting to singers right now is to develop what I call a COVID list of
Hmm.
activities
Okay.
and things that they want to achieve during the time of COVID. If you
Mm.
haven't updated your website,
Hmm.
now is the time to do it. If you haven't
Yeah.
updated your resume, time to do it.
Yeah.
You've been
Learn
learning,
some
you needed to
roles, right?
learn some roles. And,
Yeah. Yeah.
my wife is an opera singer, and she sings
Hmm.
every day. Not only does she
Mm.
sing every day,
Yeah.
she dances. She takes dance
Oh,
classes
wow. That's
every
fantastic.
day.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
but that's part of her COVID list. And
Hmm.
so I encourage
Yeah.
all of the performers to have your COVID list of things that you want to accomplish during
Absolutely.
this
Very smart.
time,
Hmm.
because once the pandemic is over
Exactly.
and we open back up, there's not going to be any.
Any more time. Yeah,
No.
there's a book I read by Robert Greene. It was
Mm-hmm.
a collaborative effort between him and 50 Cent. And
Uh
there's
huh.
one phrase in it which he says, you got to turn, I'm not going to say the word, you got to turn doo doo into sugar, right? And then you can
That's
translate.
it. That's
And lemons into lemonade. And the great
that's
gift,
right.
yeah, I mean, the
That's
great gift of COVID is time that
yeah,
we've
yeah,
all had a lot of time to
yeah.
think, to figure a lot of things out,
Yes,
and reach out to people we haven't talked to in a long time, reconnect with folks,
that's
get
exactly
really
right.
creative about doing things differently,
Yeah,
experiment. I've
yeah.
I've actually been working a lot on my voice and just
Mm-hmm.
working on concepts that I. It's funny because as probably many singers have come back to you and said, it's like years later, they're like, "Oh, that one time you told me to do this, now I get it." It's like, oh my goodness,
That is so true.
right? Yeah, and a lot of those, epiphanies have come my way, and that's one of the things that I've tried to make sure to do is just use my time wisely.
Yes.
And also in the app, I mean, we've added a lot of new tracks, we've added a little translations, the IPA,
Yes.
so it's we've made use of that time, and that's that I think I 100% agree with you.
Well, this is
Having the
time that
list.
we, yeah, this is time we won't get back. I mean,
Oh
this
yeah.
time is
Hmm.
gone. And so when this
Yeah.
year is over, and, the question that we'll have to ask ourselves is how did we use that time?
Yeah.
How did we
Hmm.
further our dreams, our goals
Hmm.
during this time? I think everybody, I remember
Hmm.
we were on tour with the American Spiritual Ensemble when the world shut down. We did a concert on March 11th, I think it was, at
Wow.
Syracuse
Yeah. Was that the one
University.
that was live streamed?
Yes, that's
Yes.
exactly
Okay, I
right.
remember seeing that one. Yeah.
And then 2 days later, the whole world was shut down, and we,
Hmm.
luckily that was our last concert on that particular leg of the tour. But
Yeah.
I think everybody for about 2 months, probably a month to 2 months, I think we were all in sort of a state of shock
Okay.
and just didn't know what to do, and we're just sort of in bed or on the couch eating chips and just
Yeah.
thinking what's going to happen. But then at some
Yeah.
point you
Hmm.
have to say, okay, this is my time, this is my
Hmm.
opportunity. I've got
Yeah.
to get up, I've got to
Hmm.
make myself a list, I've got to
Hmm.
create a plan, and then I
Yeah.
have to execute that plan so
Hmm.
that when this is over, I'm in much better shape than I was when I started
Exactly. Yeah. The whole
this.
year we've had actually.
We've had the whole year.
Is it? Yeah, it's coming up on a year. I think it was February 28th is when they
Yeah.
announced that
Hmm.
travel to and from Europe was shut down, and then
Yeah.
the hard quarantine lockdown was
Yes.
2 weeks after that. That's when it
Yes.
was actually activated across the
Yes.
country.
Yes.
So yeah, we're coming up on literally a whole year of this. So
Yes, we are,
yeah.
and so I think that hopefully we're on the downside of it,
Hmm.
and in the next 4 to 5 months, if not before, we'll be back. Certainly by the fall, I hope that we'll all be
Hmm.
back in the concert halls and things like that.
Yeah,
But
I
there's
certainly hope
still
so.
time if you haven't created
Yes.
that COVID list, and if you
Yes.
haven't done those things that you said you were going to do. There's
Hmm.
still time
Yeah.
to do that. And
Hmm.
so I encourage people to make that list and
Hmm.
do it, because the world is, they're gonna be ready for music, and they're gonna
Oh
be
yeah.
ready for art, and
Yearning for it.
yeah,
Absolutely.
yes, and so and I think all of us as artists want to be out there sharing this music and
Hmm.
sharing our art form
Yeah.
with the public, and so I think that that's one of the reasons why I think it's not going to be a slow ramp up. I think it's going to, hit. But
Yeah.
but
Yeah.
as performers, I want our performers to be ready.
Absolutely. It's almost like the Berlin Wall falling,
Yeah,
and
yeah.
everything is just open again, and there's a lot of excitement. Yeah, I think just human nature also just kind of dictates that after being deprived of something like just live singing and just being, it's gonna. I think the first few months it's gonna be like crazy,
Yeah,
and
I
then
I think so too.
things will
Yeah.
start to mellow off a little bit, but yeah, there's gonna be a great opportunity to
It'll be
capitalize on that.
pretty emotional too, I think,
Oh yeah.
because people have been, you know, all of us probably know people who have been lost during this
Yeah.
time. I certainly
Hmm.
have known,
Yeah. I have
my
a
close
few.
family members who have been lost, and
Hmm.
friends, and
Yeah.
uh,
Yeah.
and so it'll be emotional, but I think
Yeah.
on the other hand, we will be honored and excited about
Yeah.
sharing our gifts with the public.
Yes, 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 indeed. So on that track, I want to ask you about the American Spiritual Ensemble because I remember you had mentioned that you're working on a new exciting documentary. Can you tell us
Yes,
a little bit about
sure,
that?
absolutely. So we are be going to release actually tomorrow
Hmm.
a video tour, because typically we're on tour this time of the year, And
Mm-hmm.
so back in
Yeah, I remember
November, we
that.
started working on a tour video where that we could present to all of the places that we were supposed to go, and also to
Mm-hmm.
release for the public. And we also partnered with one of the last concerts that we did was at the New York American Choral Directors Association
Mm-hmm.
Eastern
Okay.
Region Convention in Rochester, and we partnered with an author by the name of Eileen Gunther, and she had written a book called "In Their Own Words: The Power of the Spiritual." And
Mm. That's great.
and what she did in her book was she researched narratives, slave narratives,
Mm-hmm.
and worked to find a correlation between the spirituals and where they might have come from. Because as you
Mm-hmm.
know, when we talk about spirituals, we talk about the fact that they are arranged spirituals because
Mm-hmm. Right.
we don't know who the composers of these
Yeah,
melodies
unfortunately.
and of
Yeah.
these words were. And so she went back and found narratives that match
Mm-hmm.
the spirituals, and we did a very moving concert in
Mm-hmm.
Rochester. And
Amazing.
so I
Mm.
asked her to partner with us, with the
Mm-hmm.
American Spiritual Ensemble, to create a concert
Yeah.
where we would use narratives from her book, and then we
Mm-hmm.
would pair them with spirituals. And so
That's great.
Eileen was gracious
Right.
enough to read the narratives, and then we
Mm-hmm.
also had other members of the American Spiritual Ensemble read the narratives,
Okay.
and
Okay.
unfortunately, what we
Cool.
couldn't do was we couldn't be in, I had my group in Lexington.
Mm-hmm.
We have the American Spiritual Ensemble members live all over the country, including New
Yeah.
York.
Mm-hmm.
And so, but we were able to do some solos in New York, and then, but the
Mm-hmm.
bulk of the group and the bulk of the material happened here in
Mm-hmm.
Lexington, and
Cool.
also in Cincinnati at the
Mm-hmm.
National Underground Railroad Freedom Center.
Wow,
and
that's
uh,
amazing.
and
Cool.
so we were able to use some archival material as well
Mm-hmm.
as some new material. And the new material, the singers are all behind
Hmm.
masks,
Oh
singing, yeah,
yeah.
and
Nice, nice. Okay. Hey, you got to do it.
giving credence
What?
to the time that we're
Mm-hmm.
in.
Of course. Yeah.
And but it's been a wonderful documentary to put together. And
Mm-hmm.
so you'll be able to, check out the American Spiritual
Yeah.
Ensemble website,
You
the
know.
American Spiritual Ensemble Facebook, and
Mm-hmm.
you'll be able to find and get the link to it and watch it.
There's a there's a preview, a trailer actually here, and I think what I can do is play a little bit of that. Is that all right?
Sure,
I think the audience would love
absolutely.
to see that. So let
Yeah,
me share
absolutely.
that trailer,
Okay.
and then we're gonna. I have a question from the audience.
Okay.
Vita actually is asking, yeah, what's the foundation for performing
Okay.
spirituals?
Sure.
And she just wants to know, how does the singer get into it and
Uh
all of
huh.
that. So just give me a second. I'm gonna share my screen, and this is the right screen, right? Okay. Here we go. And I go to my Vimeo. Okay. Oh, actually, I have to go back and make sure I'm sharing sound.
I'm so happy you're doing this and not me.
I got to be good for something,
Yeah.
right? All right. You can see my screen?
Yep, I sure can.
Excellent. Let's make a big screen and let's get the show rolling.
I'm Dr. Everett McCorvey, the founder and director of the American Spiritual Ensemble, and we would like to invite you to a special virtual concert. The American Spiritual Ensemble is not touring this year, and in the absence of our live concerts, we have developed this virtual presentation. We hope that through this virtual concert, you will witness the healing power of spirituals and their ability to speak to universal issues of the human spirit. We will listen to first-person narratives of the enslaved, and we will hear spirituals that heal the heart and quiet the broken heart. We are joined in this concert by author Eileen Gunther, reading from her book, In Their Own Words, Slave Life and the Power of Spirituals. We're also honored to be partnering with the National Underground Railroad Freedom Center in Cincinnati, Ohio, to help us tell these powerful stories. It takes the combination of beautiful melodies and compelling spoken words to enable the full power of spirituals to come through. The combination of both words and music can provide insight and healing, powerful enough to transform a hurting world. The wounds of slavery are still evident today. We see in movements like the Civil Rights Movement and the Black Lives Matter movement that the pain of slavery and the wounds of injustice are still very much at the surface. It was the music that helped to bring a people forward, and it will be the music that preserves the voices of the unheard. Join us in this virtual concert and learn about the stories of the enslaved and the songs and the words that gave them hope, joy, and determination to fight for a better day on their road to freedom.
Beautiful.
Thank you. Thank you.
Yes. Thank
I'm
you for
very
sharing
excited
that.
about the concert and very excited about sharing it with the public. It was a lot of fun to put together. It's
I can imagine,
it's and there was so much that we put into that we also have bonus tracks that if people as
Oh,
people
excellent.
access the
Okay.
concert, they'll have about 30 minutes worth of bonus material of some of our performers performing and but it's
Excellent.
just been a great experience and to tell these stories. This music is over 400 years old, and I feel like when we are working in with the American Spiritual Ensemble, that we're speaking not just for what we're doing today, but we're speaking for our ancestors, and we're telling their story, and that's very exciting to us,
Yeah.
and
Yeah.
and so I'm so delighted that we have artists like you who've been able to travel with us,
Yeah, it was a
and
great experience.
I'm, I hope you don't get too busy where you can't carve out 2 or 3 months and travel with us.
Well,
But
there's some interesting things. Actually, I will be able to join much more flexibly now moving forward because of some things I'm changing in my other career. So we can talk
yeah.
about that at
Oh,
another
great.
stage. So
Yeah.
some very, very cool developments. But um, yeah, I remember when I first joined the chorus or the ensemble, and it was just just singing along with all these. It's 24, sometimes more professional singers with professional voices, lending the classical technique to the spiritual style and this
Hmm.
tradition, and it's just incredibly powerful. And I mean, I can't remember how many standing ovations we got when we were on tour, but it was really powerful. It was really wonderful.
Well, many people probably went to see or heard about the Metropolitan Opera's production of Porgy and Bess, and I think
Hmm.
we had somewhere around 28 of the American Spiritual Ensemble singers
Hmm.
in that
In
production.
that production,
Yeah,
yeah.
and so
Yeah.
I thought, well, this is a testament to the fact that we are getting some of the world's top singers,
Hmm.
and what humbles me is the fact that the singers come back year after year when they
Hmm.
are available to participate in the group,
Hmm.
and so that's exciting for me because it says that not only perhaps it does it speak to them, the music speaks to them, but we're performing them in such a way that they
Hmm.
feel like it's healthy for their voice and that we're
Hmm.
not
Hmm.
doing something that would be
Yeah. Yeah.
counter
Hmm.
to their classical technique. And indeed, when I was a child and heard these spirituals sung, I
Hmm.
heard them sung by groups like the Tuskegee Institute Choir and Hampton University Morehouse
Hmm.
Choir. These were college students, but they were being
Mm.
trained in the classical technique. And
Excellent.
so that was the sound that I grew up on and heard. And so that was the sound that I wanted to imitate with my group, to have
Hmm.
a group that sings with a nice full
Round
sound.
sound, yeah.
And when
Hmm.
you do that, and it just touches you in such a way that it's very memorable. And so I'm telling you, every night that we perform, it's a new experience for me and a very
Yeah,
humble experience.
that's great. That's great. I'm really
You ask about how does one become a part of the group? Well,
yeah, and how does one that's interested in spirituals even sing them solo? Like, how would you guide someone like that?
well, first I would say that I want to let everybody know that spirituals are for everyone. They're not for just one group of people.
Hmm.
These
Hmm.
are American folk songs. They
Hmm.
started off at a difficult time in our country's history, but now these songs are folk songs. And so they are meant for everybody to sing.
Hmm.
They have a
Okay.
story to tell,
Yeah.
and it's important to tell that story and sing this. And if it's only sung by one group of people, my fear is that these songs won't
It won't survive and be
survive. It's
known.
got to
Yeah,
be sung by
by
everybody.
everybody. Yeah.
And something that's
Hmm.
very exciting that's happening that I'm happy to tell you about is most people who are involved in NATS, the National Association of Teachers of Singing,
Hmm.
if you've been involved in that organization in college,
Hmm.
NATS has just created a spirituals category. And so now, as
Hmm.
students, when they compete in the NATS competitions, they'll also be able to compete
The
in the
spiritual
spirituals
division.
category. Yeah, and so I'm very excited about that.
Yeah, that's great. And Hope, how you doing? A long time no see.
Well, one of
So great that she's
our
tuning in.
long-term and devoted members,
Obviously,
and
yeah.
Hope and I are also classmates. We were both from the University of Alabama, so we
Well, that's
have a
awesome.
very long history together.
That's awesome. Yeah. It's wonderful that so many people that have been involved in the ensemble are still involved in it year and year after year.
Well,
Um,
we've had people like Lawrence Brownlee started in the group before he won
wow.
the Met auditions, and
Hmm.
then after he won the Met auditions, it was, you know,
Yeah,
but Angela
yeah.
Brown, Karen Slack. I mean, we've
Hmm.
had just some wonderful people. Kenneth
Excellent.
Overton
Excellent.
is still a part of our
Hmm.
group.
Yeah.
Andrea
Hmm.
Jones Sojola, Pumzile Sojola. I mean, just
Hmm.
so many names of people who
Yeah.
are out there currently in the business doing well,
Hmm.
and yet they make time when at all possible
Hmm.
to come back and perform with the group, and that's
Hmm.
very
Hmm.
meaningful to me. And it says to me that the mission of what we're doing, which is
Hmm.
keeping this music alive, is a
Hmm.
mission that people are embracing.
Absolutely, and it's very much in line with our mission. At DictionBuddy, our mission is to make the songs of the world more
Yes,
accessible to everyone. And I know a number of weeks ago now we did discuss you being our expert in this
yes,
division
yes,
and helping us with
yes,
bringing spirituals onto the platform
yes,
and having some of the talent, some of the names you've mentioned, demonstrate the proper, enunciation and style so that
yes.
those who do want to be able to sing this music properly and with respect to the traditions can do so. So
Absolutely.
yeah, we're very lucky to have a collaboration with you in that regard.
Well, I'm really looking forward to that because I think what we
Yeah,
want to do is remove the barriers so that people
exactly,
feel comfortable singing this music and
hmm
are not intimidated by singing it, and
exactly,
and sing it in a style and a manner that is respectful of the art form. But if
exactly.
you think about it, we all sing German Lied, we all sing French
Yeah,
Melodie, we sing
yep.
chansons, we sing operatic
Romanzas
arias.
in Russian.
Absolutely. So
Yeah,
why not also sing spirituals? And
exactly. Yeah.
and just like you're coached on those songs, you'll
Hmm.
be coached on spirituals through the DictionBuddy app, which I'm very
Hmm.
excited about, and
Yeah,
because this will open up this music to the rest of the world,
exactly.
and
Yeah.
that's the thing that really excites me.
That's fantastic. Yeah.
Yeah.
So we'll be announcing more updates on that in the coming weeks. So stay tuned for that. Tell me a little bit about, you had mentioned George Shirley was one of your mentors.
Mm-hmm.
What other pivotal events would you say happened in your career that moved you in the direction you chose to go in?
I think one of them was also going to the Aspen Music Festival.
Okay.
I was a student at the
Hmm.
Aspen Music Festival. My first music festival was the Blossom Music Festival in
Okay.
Cleveland, where I had the opportunity to work with Martin Katz, and
Oh,
that was
yes. Yeah.
just
Famous Martin Katz.
amazing
Yeah. Hmm.
because he really helped me to understand the how to create legato lines in
Hmm.
especially German lieder, which is what we were working on at the time.
Hmm.
And he also became a friend and mentor after that summer. And then the next summer, I went to Aspen Music Festival, and I went to
Hmm.
the Aspen Music Festival maybe 4 or 5 summers. But I would say that
Hmm.
probably 90% or more of my professional gigs came
Hmm.
as a direct result of me being at the Aspen Music Festival. And so I'm really
Wow.
high on young performers getting to go to music festivals when they are
Hmm.
ready to do that, because you make connections all over the world, really,
Hmm.
from those festivals. And so from the Aspen Music Festival, I had a friend who told me about the New York production of Porgy and Bess that was at
Hmm.
Radio City Music Hall.
Wow.
And so I
Okay.
flew to New
Hmm.
York, had my first audition
Hmm.
for Porgy and Bess, and was cast in that production at Radio City Music Hall.
It's fantastic. Cool.
And that sort of started my career that way as well. So
Hmm.
that was a pivotal moment.
Fantastic. Fantastic. Um, I had a question. It's kind of slipped my mind at this point, but it'll come back. I was thinking of it when you were talking. I was like, well,
Yeah,
that's interesting.
yeah, you're too
Um,
young.
oh man, well, sometimes
Yeah.
it happens early.
Well, one of the things that another thing that I tell students all the time, and
Hmm.
we had Mark Campbell here, who was the
Hmm.
librettist for Silent Night, and he was doing a master class here at UK.
Oh, I've met Mark. Yeah.
Yeah,
Uh-huh.
and we laughed because a student asked him about, what's your, how do you, get gigs and get opportunities and all like that.
Hmm.
And he said something to them that I always say to the students, and that is
Hmm.
the first answer is yes.
Then you
And
figure
then,
it out.
then you figure it out. And then after the first answer of being
Uh-huh.
yes, if it turns out that you can't do it,
Hmm.
then okay, we've at least given it the best try. But
Hmm.
that first
Okay.
answer has to be yes. Let's try to
Hmm.
make something happen that's
Hmm.
special, that's unique,
Yeah.
so
Yeah.
that
Hmm.
it can help further your career as a performer.
Hmm.
So throughout my young career, and it still is that way. My first answer is always
Hmm.
yes.
Always yes. That's great. That's great. Um, if there was something you could change about the industry and make it a standard across, what would it be? I'm curious.
Well, I'm right now. I'm working on a lot of diversity, equity, and inclusion committees, both within the
Hmm.
university and in other organizations. We just
Hmm.
had a wonderful conference yesterday with the New York Choral Consortium, and I'm on that board. And
Mm, okay.
we have. We are talking about diversity, equity, and inclusion issues around the country, and a lot of it, of course, is the reason for that is because of what happened this summer with Black Lives Matter
Mm, mm,
movement. But if I had to change one thing, I would say that I would want to continue to work to remove the systemic racism that is
mm,
in our country and in organizations. And that's
mhm,
happening. It just needs to continue happening. I'm very
mhm,
excited about, different opera companies are now beginning to hire people of color in
mhm,
advisory positions, and some as artistic directors, as
hmm,
Afton Battle was just
mhm.
hired in
Right.
a general director position, and
Mhm,
we have others who are, Karen Slack is working in
hmm,
position, Morris Robinson with Cincinnati Opera,
mhm. Yeah, I saw
and
that.
and I
Mhm.
think that what that's going to do, I think Larry Brownlee is maybe with Pittsburgh or Philadelphia. I can't remember
Yeah, and
which one
Eric
of them.
Owens at Curtis. Yeah, there's a
Yeah,
lot changing in the business.
and I think this is really important because
Mhm,
then you're going to have people in the room where it happens. Where did you get that line from?
Right.
But that's such a famous line. You got to be in the room where it
Yeah.
happens. And so, where's what happening?
The
Casting
decisions are being
decisions,
made.
where the decisions are being made, so that we can begin to remove some of this systemic racism that's happening in our country. And a lot of that means that we have to get people of color and of all races into decision-making positions, so that as decisions are
The
being
biases that
made,
exist, I think
that's exactly right.
that's essentially what happens. Yeah.
Because some of those have been there for so long that people don't even realize that there's a problem. And it's not until you get someone who's of a different race, a different gender, a different nationality to come in and say, hey, wait a minute, do you realize that this is happening? And so if I had something to change, it would be that I would want this this current movement that we're going through now to continue, so that a few years from now, certainly 5 years from now, we see our industry as being totally transformed because more people are at the table.
Got it. Got it. Yeah, it's understandable. There's a lot that's changed, I think, over the course of time. If you look at history, and I think from having George Shirley and maybe a couple of others being the only prominent black
Absolutely.
singers, to now having tons of them. I mean, we have
Yes.
Solomon Howard and Ryan
Yes.
Speedo Green. We have
Oh, Latanya
Eric
Moore. I
Owens,
mean, you
Latanya
got
Moore,
yeah, you got
Karen Slack,
so
etc. So
many.
things have certainly the needle has been moved significantly,
Yeah.
and it's I think it's also we're getting more Asians, Asian Americans, and Asian people with Asian background also coming into the business. So
Yes.
yeah,
Yes.
things are certainly
Well,
moving
I
in the
was
right
talking
direction.
with
So
Lawrence Brownlee this past Friday because he's coming
hmm
in to do a master class for us, and
oh great, okay.
I was saying to him how I'm so proud of the work that he's doing to open doors for other young artists, and not just enjoying the limelight himself, but sharing the spotlight with young singers and using his bully pulpit of the success of his career
Yeah.
to bring other people along and open the door for other young singers, and that's just very exciting. And so many people are doing that. I love Karen Slack's Kiki Conversations
Oh sure, yeah. She's on
show that
Facebook
she's
pretty often doing
doing,
that.
and
Yeah.
Kenneth Overton, his Black Opera Live. I mean, so many artists are now being introduced to
Exactly.
to the world through these platforms that came up because of COVID, and
Yeah.
and the
Yeah.
opportunity
Yep.
to continue
Exactly.
to make a connection. And but it's going to change our business, and we're going to realize that there's just so much talent out there, and so many people who have been waiting to have their moment in the sun and their opportunities.
Yeah.
And we have now singers taking that opportunity and introducing others to the light.
Yeah. That's awesome. That's awesome. Thank you for sharing those thoughts, and we look forward to seeing what you're going to do to move the needle in that regard. So, thank you for everything you've done also so far.
Well, thank
There's
you very
another
much.
question here. Are there particular names of other singers from the past and even currently that you would recommend to singers to listen to for spirituals, specifically? Who do some of the best work in that avenue?
Well, my work has been through a lot of my work started with choral spirituals, and so if people have the opportunity, go back and listen to William Dawson and the Tuskegee Institute Choir, and listen to the way that his group's able to shape those spirituals and sing them. Of course, Marian Anderson, when as she sang spirituals, and how meaningful they were to me. And of course, I grew up on listening to Leontine Price sing. Anything Leontine Price sings is
Okay.
just stunning. But those were some of the
Yeah.
singers that I
Leontine
listened
Price.
to as growing up
Hmm.
singing in this style, and
Hmm.
the Jesse Norman Kathleen Battle
Oh yeah, that was my
you
next
know album
question.
is just amazing, and
Hmm.
the American Spiritual Ensemble. I don't know if you were on that tour where we had the opportunity to do a concert with Kathleen Battle, but
No, that would have been great.
I'm telling you, every day in rehearsal, it was a master class in legato singing. I will never
Yeah.
forget the week that we spent with her because it was just life changing with the
Mm-hmm.
beauty of not only her voice, but the
Mm-hmm.
beauty of her spirit and what she imparted to the members of the group. Talk about sharing the spotlight. I mean,
Hmm.
she really, in that concert, wanted to share the spotlight with the singers.
That's
And
amazing. That's good.
but just her explanations of legato singing and how
Hmm.
how you keep the syllables together was
Hmm.
just amazing. And so, but those were some of the singers that I listened
Hmm.
to growing up, and they really made a difference for me
Hmm.
because I have always thought of this music as being important not only to my culture but to the American canon of
Hmm.
music. And the
Hmm.
reason I started the American Spiritual Ensemble was because I felt that this music was not getting the notoriety and attention that it needed to get. And
Hmm.
gospel music was becoming more and more popular.
Hmm.
And so, but the spirituals, I call the spirituals the mother music because
Hmm. Yeah.
spirituals are over
Yeah.
400 years old, whereas
Hmm.
gospel music really started in the 1920s and 1930s. And
Hmm.
so gospel
Okay.
music is
Okay.
coming up on 100 years as opposed to spirituals that have
Yeah.
been
Up to
in this
400
country
years.
for 400 years. And
Hmm.
so
Hmm.
from this mother music, the American
Hmm.
Negro spiritual, many forms of music grew: jazz, blues, gospel.
Hmm.
But the music that started it all was the spiritual.
Yeah. Yeah. You got to go back to the roots, the foundation.
Yep, absolutely.
Remember, I actually when I was in Buffalo, this is probably 8 years ago now.
Mm-hmm.
Kathleen Battle came to Kleinhand's Music Hall and did a
Uh-huh.
concert on our tour of the Underground Railroad.
Uh-huh. Uh-huh.
And yeah, it was so powerful. It was
Yeah.
really incredible.
And her
So that was
voice
a great
is
experience.
magnificent. I mean, it's
Yeah.
just it's still as strong and powerful and beautiful as always. And
Yeah. Yeah.
so it's a joy to experience that live.
Yeah. Yeah. I remember it was just incredible the control, absolute mastery she had over her instrument.
Yes,
That was really great to see because
yes,
that's
yes.
it's so rare.
And
Yeah.
that's when you know that there's technique because
Hmm.
one of
Yeah.
the things we do as voice teachers is we try to teach a technique that will last, a
Hmm.
technique that will be in the with the singer
Hmm.
for their entire life, not a
Hmm.
technique that is great for 10 years and then you blow out your voice. You want a
Exactly. Yeah.
technique that's going to last
Hmm.
you well into your 60s and 70s and 80s
Hmm. Yeah.
so that you can share your whole life. And
Hmm.
so I love to listen to those singers who've had that lifelong singing from Pavarotti to Joan Sutherland to Placido Domingo to Leontine Price. And uh, so classical singing is my world.
Great. Yeah, these are all singers. I mean, especially Pavarotti, where he was one I really looked up to,
Yeah.
and he's probably the reason I became a singer. I must say. So,
Oh wow.
yeah, yeah. So we all go
Very
back.
cool.
There's always this tradition. Um, just want to ask, the website for the American Spiritual Ensemble is just
It
americanspiritualensemble.com, correct?
That's exactly right.
Okay,
American Spiritual
excellent. I'm going to put that up
Ensemble.com.
so
Yep.
people can find the website.
Yep. Yep. Yep.
And to get in touch with you if they want to work with you directly, what's the best way for them to do that?
Absolutely. Well, actually, there's a place on the website that says contact, and it's
Hmm.
Everett at AmericanSpiritualensemble.com.
Ah,
So,
excellent. Okay, I'm
yep.
gonna write that in too.
Yep. And so if you go to the website, there's a way to contact me directly,
Hmm.
and the email comes to me. So, and
Excellent.
if you're interested in at the University of Kentucky, it's
Hmm.
McCorvey at
Yeah,
uky.edu. So,
excellent. Yeah.
my goal is to be accessible because I want to be able to help and share and promote the next generation to keep the music going.
Well, we're more than confident that they'll be in great hands if they get the privilege of working with you and getting to the University of Kentucky. Because any institution that prioritizes excellence and teaches the students to be the best in every angle and or in every facet in this business, it's that's how you have a long career. That's how you become great, and that's how you truly realize what this art form requires.
Yes, and
And
the thing that I try to impart on students and the professional people that I work with as well
hmm
is that you have to find a balance in your life so that because the business is crazy. I mean, there's lots of going. Of course,
yeah,
it's silent right now, but
yeah,
when it comes back up, it's a lot going on out there, and
hmm
you have to have a way to be centered, and you have to be able to be aware of what your gifts are and how
hmm
you share the gifts that you were given in a way to where you can have a stable life, a stable existence,
hmm
and being able to share and give back.
yeah.
And so that's something that I work very hard to try to do, not in my own life, and I try to impart that to my singers and the professional singers that I have the opportunity to work with.
Excellent. Well, that's how the tradition continues.
Yeah.
So thank you very much, Dr. McCorvey, for making time on your Sunday afternoon. Um, Anything else you'd like to say to our audience before
I'm
we wrap
just
this up?
thank you so much for having me, and thank you for giving me this platform. And I'm looking
Of
forward to
course.
continue to work with you and with the Diction Buddy organization to get the word out about spirituals. And I would say to our folks in cyberland, if you don't have Diction Buddy, get it. I think you will really love it, and I know that our students have, and the professional singers that I work with enjoy it as well. And you're doing something really wonderful for the business. So just keep it up.
Thank you. I will do. And we're
Yeah.
at your service, and we
Thank you,
can't wait
man.
to connect with you and build
Yeah.
something really exciting for the music community and our fellow singers. So,
That's great.
everybody, thank you so much for joining us on this beautiful Sunday afternoon. This will be archived so that you can see it if you weren't able to join us live. And I strongly suggested them some of the amazing stories that Dr. McCorvey has shared with us about his experience and his life. And the advice that he has for young singers, I think, is very invaluable. And so I hope you take the time to take a look at what he has to say. So yeah, I wish you the rest of a great rest of the weekend, and we'll be in touch. You'll see some great
Okay.
new updates coming from Diction Buddy and from Dr. McCorvey. Don't forget to check out the documentary coming out tomorrow. It's just $10 to rent it, and it's going to be filled with great music, interviews, and just a lot of context around Mr. McCorvey and his mission to make spirituals a meaningful aspect of what the music business is about, and also just I think it's an important part of history. So check it out. It is on Vimeo, just $10 to rent it. Have a wonderful rest of your day, guys. Thank you.